a little bit about elopement, but I'm hoping, Dr. Najdowski, that you can help us to know how we want to communicate with our providers, our one-on-one aides, about what they need to be doing. If the schools aren't going to teach them, maybe we need to get educated on it and talk to the aides.
Right. Well, first of all, elopement is like any other challenging behavior. And so I think sometimes when you have a behavior that seems more bizarre or like different from all the rest, like this isn't, the everyday maybe hitting somebody or engaging in stereotypy or kind of like the things we see all the time. And so it's easy to get caught up with, oh, this is totally something different and we can't treat it the way we treat all of the other challenging behavior, but that's not the case.
Okay.
So my first question would be is whether there's been an assessment done, a functional behavioral assessment.
Okay.
Sometimes I don't even know if you were thinking that down those lines, but you still have to do it, even with something like elopement.
So the FBA, the functional behavior assessment, tells us why the behavior is happening.
Yeah.
And if we don't, a lot of times I think we just assume. Like in the case of Avante, I think the assumption was he wants to get to the trains.
And that might be right.
And it might be right, but and they may have done an FBA on that. We don't know. We don't want to speculate. Right. But when we're talking about our kids, we don't want to assume. We want to make sure that we know what is the paycheck for the elopement, right?
Yeah. I think it's easy to assume because elopement, by definition, kind of means like running away or leaving. And it's easy sometimes to assume that a child is doing this to escape. Like that might be the first thing someone thinks of, well, they don't want to be here, so they run away or whatever. But lots of research has been done on assessing as well as treating elopement, and they found all sorts of the normal functions. Some kids are leaving because there is something they want access to. For example, in one study there was a child who kept eloping in the mall. Well, it was because he wanted to go to the toy store. He kept always going to the toy store. So with that child, he may be trying to actually get to the train station, but who knows? Maybe it's something else, and then once he's gone and doesn't know what to do with himself, he ends up at the train station. We don't know.
So if you've got a child who's eloping, before you start an intervention, you got to have somebody look at it.
Yeah.
And determine why. And there may be more than one reason, correct? So, but we have to get clear about this before we do the intervention. And I think that's a really tough sell for a lot of parents. They want instantaneous, we want to start things. And of course, with elopement, you're terrified, right? You're terrified that something bad is going to happen. But I always like to compare it to when our car starts doing something funny, we take it to the mechanic. We might take it to the mechanic and say, I think it's the alternator. But you don't walk up to the mechanic and say, it's the alternator, fix the alternator, and I'll come back and pay you $500 for the alternator. Don't even bother to look at what it is.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't do that with our kids, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
There's lots of reasons. There's been cases where kids are doing it literally for the attention that they get when someone chases after them. There's been instances where they're doing it because they want access to something else, chips, something that simple.
Yeah.
Or they're trying to escape or whatever it may be. So you do still need to figure that out. And then the interventions are all the same as the normal interventions.